Ooh, that looks tasty.
With the growth and expansion of the city of Hellgarden has come a seedy underbelly. Every day, pirates and smugglers import vicious creatures and monstrous beasts from across the globe. These creatures are destined for the Hellgarden pits. In abandoned sewers and overcrowded slums, local degenerates breed these creatures and pit them against each other in gladiatorial combat. You are one of these breeders. Welcome, folks. Today, the Hungry Gamer is back, this time with another review. This time, it is of Underleague, designed by Fergus, Blair, and published by Cogwright Games. Now, before I jump in, let me just say that this game is designed for 2 to 5 players. I have only set up a 2-player game. As you heard in the intro, the city of Hellgarden has been growing and has become the site for literal underground and metaphorical underground monster gladiatorial combat. And you happen to be playing, and your opponents, one of the breeders, the people who are breeding and building, in some cases, these various monsters and then pitting them against each other in this combat. Now, this, I know, sounds like every other combat card game, except the twist here is the real goal is to make your fortune. You make your fortune by winning bets. And so that's something that's very unique about this game, and I'm going to explain it to you in just a minute. So in order to do that, let's jump into a game. Again, I am set up for a 2-player game. I will tell you that over here, I've actually already done the preseason, as it's called, with this hand, but I will show you with this other hand over here how that works. So the game is broken down into the season and the preseason. And you start in your preseason, and then after you've done all your preseason actions, which involve setting your stable are the 3 creatures that you have and you're able to use, gaining any strategy cards that you're going to earn for various reasons. After you've done that, then you'll move into the betting phase, and again, you'll see that. But basically, that is where you will use these chips to bet whether various creatures are going to win or they are going to lose. Then you move into the combat phase, which is where you get to make challenges of other creatures and you actually get to fight. Then after that, you move back into the preseason phase. Part of the preseason phase is you check to see if someone has won the game. You win the game by getting to 20 victory points. However, I am getting ahead of myself. So the first thing you have to do before you actually start the game is you have to set your stables. Let me move this aside. And so the way that works is each player has the exact same deck of 30 monsters. They are all exactly the same, and they all have various abilities and various values. So the way that it works is you take your deck, which you have shuffled, and you draw 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. You flip it over and you take a look, and you pick one of these 3 that you are going to use. So just to keep us moving, I'm going to say that I'm going to take this Raven of the Spires. And this will make more sense later, but this is its day combat value. That's its night combat value. This is how many victory points it is worth just having in your stable. And down here it says dominance. That means if you attack and win, you are dominating. You may discard up to 2 strategy cards, then draw cards equal to the number that you discarded this way. So, as I said, I'm going to take that one and put it into my stable. Take my other 2 cards, and I put those on the bottom of my deck, and then I do the same thing 2 more times. And so, what I've wound up with, in addition to my Raven, is I've wound up with this Nymph of the Myriads, 0 day, 2 nights, worth 1 point. And after you play an equipment with a negative value modifier, you may take a victory card, so you get a victory point for playing those. And then you have the Scavenging Vermin. It's a 3 day, 3 night. It gives me 0 points, and if I win, I get to take an additional victory card. And I play that down. And then you move into the actual preseason for the first turn. And as I said, I've actually already done all of that with this hand over here. So the first thing that you do in the preseason is you calculate your victory points. Now, I know what you're thinking, that there are no victory points, but that's not actually true. Because victory points are tabulated by both winning fight and by the number of points you have out in your stable. So you'll see down here, this Nymph is worth 1 point. My Scavenging Vermin is worth 0,
and my raven is worth 3. So right now this side, the black side, has 4 points. Whereas over here, this side has 4, 3, 1, so 8 points already. Then the next thing that you do is, if no one has 20 points, which no one does at the start of the game, you determine who goes first. The player with the lowest victory point total goes first, so the black side will get to go first. Then you do what is called mustering. And what that means is the first thing you do is you unexhaust any creature. Any creature that has fought or lost a fight winds up like this. They can only be used once per turn. You unexhaust them. Then you draw cards from the strategy deck equal to the number of chips in your pool. Those are the chips, these win-loss chips, that are not out on the board. So in the case of at the beginning of the game, you are automatically starting with 5 because you have 5 chips. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to pause here and show you how these strategy cards work. So when you look at these, you see up here in the corner, that is the cost. In order to play one of these cards, you must also discard that number of strategy cards from your hand. You can see I've done a very poor job of shuffling here. They're all the same. But if I wanted to play this Cortical Parasite, I would have to discard 2 other strategy cards. Then here, this is the amount of victory points it is worth. So in this case, if I play this on one of my creatures, it will wind up being worth 1 less victory point. And then what the card does, when this creature defends, the attacking player chooses the type of fight. And this will become apparent why that matters in just a minute. And there are also some cards that aren't equipment. You don't equip them to something, it just changes kind of the rules of the round. Anyone who's played any game with cards, you understand how that works. Then the next thing that you do is you check. If you have 3 creatures of the same type, which means the color of their victory points is the same, you get to draw 1 extra strategy card. Then you take back any of these chips that are still out on the board, and I'll explain how that happens in just 1 second. Then the next meaningful choice you have to make is you have to decide, am I going to just invest in strategy and draw 2 more strategy cards to my deck, which is what I've done over here, or am I going to try to get a different creature? So let's just say that, you know what, I'm just not feeling my scavenging vermin here. I don't like it. It hits well, but I want something a little bit different. Maybe I want to try to get another the same thing. So I can take this, and I can put this creature on the bottom of my deck, draw 2 more, and I can pick 1 to put out. And unfortunately for me, I did not get the type of creature I wanted, but we'll just say, you know what, I like this guy here, so I'm going to put him out instead. And then the other one goes onto the bottom of the deck. Then you enter into the betting phase. And the betting phase is very simple. You're taking your chips here, and you're going to decide, you're going to place them all, what creatures are going to win and what creatures are going to lose their fights. You'll notice I have 5, I only have 3 creatures. So you put these out, and you bet on yours, and you bet on the opponent as well. And I'm just putting these out kind of at random, and both sides do this. There we go. And we'll just say that that's what I do. So I have a win here, 2 wins here, 2 loses here, 2 wins, a lose, and a win. Well, that's boring. I'm going to go ahead and flip that over so that one says win. And do keep in mind that this game does play with up to 5 players, so you could have a lot of betting going on around the table. Then you move into what is called the combat phase. This is where the bulk of the game happens, and this is really the last thing that you need to understand. So again, you start with the first player, and the first player has a choice. They are allowed to make 1 challenge and play 1 strategy card. They do not have to make a challenge, they do not have to play a strategy card, but that's very boring if I don't do that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this Cortical Parasite, which gives me a negative modifier right there, but it does allow me, if I'm attacking, to choose the type of fight, and you're just about to see that. So to play this, and I'm going to play it on my nymph here, I have to discard 2 cards. I'll discard 2 more Cortical Parasites. And then, because I played this here, the nymph has, after you play any equipment with a negative modifier, you take a victory card. So even though I've lost a victory point there, I've actually just gained 1. And you mark your victory points from fights or whatever, just taking a card and just placing it face down. You can see that's just off screen, but it's there. And now I'm going to make a challenge. So I am a 0 fight in the day and a 2 fight in the night. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to challenge this Formic Husk here. It's actually not a very good fight for me, but I'm going to do it anyway. And so, boom, I put him out, and I exhaust him. and I'm attacking this Formic Husk. Now usually the defender gets to decide if you are attacking at day or at night, and the reason being they get to decide how many dice they're going to get. But because I have this parasite on me, I get to choose as the attacker, so clearly I'm going to fight at night, which means my nymph gets 2 dice, and my Formic Husk here gets 3. And now let's look at our dice really quickly. You have a D3, a D4, and a D6. And you always start with the lowest number. So if you have only 1 die, you only get to use the D3. If you have 2, you get the D3 and the D4. And if you have a 3, you get all 3 dice. So my fight is my black team here gets 2 dice, and the other team gets 3. And now this is just a very simple who gets a higher roll. I take them and we roll. And here, whoops, that was a 2. And so here we see we have 4 versus 5. That means that my defender has won, and the end result of that is not much, except now this creature is exhausted. Had the result been different and I won here, I would have taken a victory card off of there, and I would have reclaimed my token. Also, I would have reclaimed the token over here because it actually lost. However, because this creature won, the yellow team successfully made the right bet and gets their chip back. The other thing that would have happened is, had the attacker won, I would have had to exhaust the defender. So that would mean that they have just 1 less chance to attack and gain a victory card. Then we move to the yellow team, and now they get a chance. And so what I would like to do is I want to play these Iron Tusks. You see they cost 1 card to equip, and after the creature has rolled combat dice, its owner may choose one of its dice and re-roll it. So I'm going to discard one of these extra shiny trinkets. Just goes bonk into the discard, and I'm going to equip it to my Formic Husk here, who is now a very powerful creature. And then I'm going to go ahead and attack with my Formic Husk. Now, it says here that you can't attack with the Husk unless you first discard a strategy card, so I'll take 1 strategy card, discard it, and it will now attack. And I'm going to go ahead and attack this Raven here. The Raven is a 2/2, so that means I'm rolling the exact same dice that I rolled before. So I take them, and I roll, and you'll see that I have a 7 for the black team, and I have a 7/11 for my yellow team. However, what I could have done, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that I had rolled that, because I have these tusks on there, I could take 1 die, which I'll take the D6, and re-roll it. And you'll see now I've gone from losing to winning. And so that means that the Raven becomes exhausted. The yellow team won the bet, so it gets to take that back. Now you'll notice that the black team also bet lose on the Raven, so it also won its bet, and it gets to take that back. And then the last thing is, a victory card would go to the yellow team. And you go back and forth like this until everyone has passed, meaning they don't have any attacks to do, and they're not playing any cards. And then you start back over. Now, the only thing that changes now is now you are adding, after you've unexhausted everything, is now you add your victory cards to your total. So now the yellow team has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and my black team here has 1, but it has a -1, so 0, 3, 6, and then 1 victory card, 7. And then the only other thing that I need to point out is we'll just pretend that it finished like this and all these chips are still out there. That means when it came time to draw, the black team would only get to draw 1 strategy card, whereas the yellow team would get to draw 2 strategy cards because they were successful on 2 bets. And that's how the game works. It just kind of goes back and forth like this until somebody gets to 20 victory points. So what do I like about this game? Well, the first thing that I really like about the game is I love the creature art. I think these are super cool. I think they're just very attractively done. They're evocative. It's just really good. I really like the art. I also really like the theme of this game. I think they have done an excellent job of grabbing that idea that this is, yes, it's fighting, yes, it's kind of gladiatorial, but the betting. I've never played a game that really grabbed this idea of the betting, and there is a real value to winning because these strategy cards are so important. It is really how you win the game. I also, overall, I like the combat. It's quick, it's simple. I like this idea that the dice get progressively more powerful as you go through. And overall, I think that is very cool. And I like this idea of the day and the night. You know, some monsters, hey, they're better at day. Some are fight better at night when it's darker or whatever it may be. That's really cool. I really like that. Now, this does bring me to the few quibbles that I have with the game. The first one is I don't particularly love that the defender always gets to choose the day or night attack. I say always, obviously I had an ability I used over here that allowed me to do something different, but 90% of the time the defender's choosing, and even though I like the difference in the dice, having the ability to make that choice makes the game much more slanted to the defender winning fights. When we've played, I'm going to go so far as to say 65% of the time the defender wins just because they have that choice. And in theory, that's not a bad thing, but the problem is it slows the game down because you're trying to get to 20 victory points. And so I'm not in love with that. I wish there was some kind of way that the person getting to choose when the fight took place could be swayed to where the attacker gets to choose on occasion. The next thing that is I have a little bit of a quibble with are the components. Even though I love the art, these chips are great. I will say that the cards, on the surface they seem like they're pretty good, but they're not very sturdy. The very first time we played, my buddy went to pick one up and actually peeled part of the card off. It kind of split, and they aren't very strong. I do think if you were going to be playing this game a lot, you'd probably need to sleeve it, and that's a bummer because, as you can see, it's a lot of cards in there. It's not something that is a game breaker, but it is something to think about. You've got to be really careful with these cards. And then the last thing that I want to bring up is it's a pretty solid game with 2 players. It's a much better game with 3, 4, 5 players because it gives you so many more options of who you're betting on and who you can challenge. Because I think that also mitigates a little bit this idea that the defender always gets to choose, because as you look with 5 players or 4 players, there are suddenly so many more monsters out there and you have so many more options of who you're going to fight. It's much more likely that you'll be able to find a good match no matter what they choose, day or night. However, on the flip side of that, it slows the game down even more. And that's the biggest problem with this game, is it can, depending on the draws, overstay its welcome a little bit. I do know the first time we played, we were just playing 2 players. We were at maybe 15 victory points, and we were thinking, man, I don't feel like this game's never going to end. And it did actually end fairly quickly after that, but we had that feeling. I almost think that 20 victory points might be too much. So there you have it, folks. That is Underleague. This is a unique feeling game. They have nailed the theme. They have nailed the artwork. I love the idea behind this game. The cards, yes, they're a little bit off, and the game can take a long time. However, I will say, if you are looking for a kind of head-to-head card game that plays multiple people, and you like this theme, and particularly if you like this betting mechanic, which I think is really the core to this game, so it makes it unique, then this is a game to check out. As always, if you know this game and I've made a mistake in that super fast explanation, please let me know, and I will be sure to get those into the Kingon Subtitles. If you have any other comments of things that I could have done better, please let me know, and I will do my very best to make that happen in the future. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, go ahead and subscribe. I got a whole bunch more videos coming, previews, reviews, unboxings. As always, thank you again for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.